here I come.
Later this month, Evel Knievel will be 60. Tonight we celebrate a motorcycle daredevil who is, without doubt, incredibly brave, but possibly a little mad. To begin Evel Night, we take a close look at the life of the man himself. One-time copper miner and bank robber from Butte, Montana, Robert Craig Knievel was to create one of the most famous characters of our time. In a new documentary, Touch of Evil, he tells how the pain from countless crashes finally took its toll.
I'd been hurt 30-some times. And every time I saw a bus or a truck coming down the road, I used to wince when I was driving a car even.
Then at 9:55 on Evel Night, it's the first of 3 short films looking at the lives of other daredevil riders. First up is Britain's very own Evel Knievel, Eddie Kidd.
It is the Black Knight by a mere 5 feet.
At 5 to 10, we turn the clock back to September 1974. David Frost reports direct from Idaho as Evel Knievel attempts to jump the Snake River Canyon in a steam-powered rocket.
If I have to hit that wall over there on the other side, I think that maybe I would rather do that than become the victim of a senseless tragedy.
At 10:25, it's the second in our series of Nice Jumpers. 27-year-old Fiona Beale is making a big impact in the male-dominated world of motorcycle stunt jumping. At 10:30 on Evel Night, it's a special episode of The Simpsons. Bart becomes obsessed with Lance Murdoch when he brings his Daredevil show to Springfield.
The fact of the matter is, bones heal, chicks dig scars, and the United States of America has the best doctor to daredevil ratio in the world.
But Captain Murdoch! Thanks, Lance.
You're welcome, little partner.
At 10 to 11, it's our final Nice Jumper. One of the few daredevils to come close to matching the crazy jumps performed by Evel Knievel was Frenchman Alain Jean-Prieur. Finally, on Evel Night, it's the 1977 feature film Viva Knievel, starring Gene Kelly, Lauren Hutton, and Evel Knievel. Evel's life is at risk when a band of drug smugglers plot to kill him.
Sorry, Miz. I'm not dead yet. You better get some more film for that camera.
So, this is how Evel Night lines up. Next is the documentary Touch of Evil. Then at 9:50, it's Nice Jumpers with Eddie Kidd. At 9:55, it's the Frost interview from the Snake River Canyon jump. At 10:25, Nice Jumpers Part 2 with Fiona Beale. And at 10:30, the Simpsons episode Bart the Daredevil. At 10 to 11, our final Nice Jumper is Alain Jean-Prieur. And to round off Evel Night, it's the film Viva Knievel, starting at 11:25. But first, Touch of Evil.
Fought in Rome. Julius Caesar had the meanest lion in all of Rome, all of Italy. And my grandfather, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, was the toughest gladiator in the world. And Caesar hated him. He was jealous of him, because Caesar was a little punk with a lot of money, but he wasn't a gladiator. So he decided to kill my great-great-great-great-grandfather, so he buried him up to his neck in the arena in Rome. And he turned this huge, ferocious lion, the meanest lion in all of Italy, on my grandfather. And as the lion charged my great-great-great-great-grandfather and leaped at him, my great-great-great-great-grandfather ducked. And as the lion went over him, he reached up and he bit his balls right off of him, and he spit them right at Julius Caesar. You know what Caesar said? "Fight fair, you son of a bitch, fight fair." Now that's how tough my great-great-great-great-grandfather was, and I guess that's where I got it from.
Parrot Street, Butte, Montana. First home of the all-American gladiator, Robert Craig Knievel. Not yet known as Evil, he was playing Bobby in his formative years. He was born in October 1938. His parents divorced soon after, and he was raised by his grandparents. Butte, Montana is built on copper mines, a magnet for entrepreneurs and chances, with more self-belief and nerve than most. This was the place that shaped the Knievel character. In Butte, you don't waste time, you might not have much of it, and Knievel was married at 20 to his childhood sweetheart, Linda. Today, most of the mines are closed and the town is in decline. But in Knievel's youth, Butte buzzed like the old Wild West.
This town was loaded with people. Every block had 3 or 4 bars in it. Beers were a nickel. It was just unbelievable. There were 500 prostitutes working in 1 square block on Mercury and Galena Street. And my grandfather's tire shop was right on Galena Street. I was raised right in it. That Blonde Edna's whorehouse was right across the street from it, and Dirty Mouth Mary's was on the other side. The girls had worked 3 shifts for the miners. Some real smart genius came here and tore the town to pieces and relocated everybody. If he'd have left the town like it was, this would be still one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world. Only he had such a great college education that he just felt he ought to tear it down. If they ever find out who he was, they ought to hang the son of a bitch. He just destroyed the city of Butte.
The copper mines dominated the skyline of Knievel's hometown. At its height, Butte, Montana was nicknamed the richest hill on earth. As a young man lacking a college education, it was inevitable that Knievel would end up in the pits. It was work that created brave and gritty men.
I worked in them 2 years and I could hardly wait to get out. I had many friends killed in the mines, accidents, having ore dumped on them in the shafts and killed, and falling to the bottom and being crushed to death in the slopes. And I just wanted to get out. I started out as a bus driver, driving the men up to the trucks, and then they would take them down. Then I only did that one day. I took them up, and when I brought them home, they'd never get in the bus with me again. They said, "Boy, we've had our last ride with you, kid."
For most, escaping the mines was an impossible dream. But the young Knievel turned it into reality. He found a variety of ways to earn a living. Most were short-lived. Most were intended to get him rich quick. Not all were legal.
At one time he caught me and I was in the bar and he wanted some masonry bits. And I thought, "What the hell do you need masonry bits for?" I said, "I got to go through a wall, masonry wall." So I told him, "Gee, you can buy them at any lumber yard." So we got some bits, but I didn't realize that he was going to rob the damn bank.
It was a 2-day job to rob a big vault in a federal bank. You had to go through brick filled with cement. But I operated with guys that were on heroin. I was never on drugs. And to get along with them under pressure was real tough. I mean, one of them might shoot you. And the pressure got on us so bad that I really had a nervous breakdown. I remember I threw all of the burglar tools and everything in the Sacramento River, California. And I just vowed right then that I would never steal another dime or rob another place, and I never did. Ever have stolen anything, and I'll take a lie detector test of that.
Actually, he wasn't a bank robber because he never got nothing. Oh, I figured he'd try anything. I think that's why he started jumping motorcycles, because he couldn't make it as a burglar.
I put together a stunt show called Bob Knievel and his Motorcycle Daredevils, Hollywood, California. And my sponsor said, the nickname you have at the racetracks is Evel Knievel, why don't you use it? It'd be a better name. So anyway, I did. I wasn't too thrilled with it. I was ashamed of being called Evil. But when I'd get hurt, the show would come to an end. And I couldn't afford to pay the guys. But the jump got so much publicity. The racetrack promoter said to me, he said, I'll pay you to come in and just make the jump at intermission in a stock car race or whatever. So I would get as much as $1, $2 a ticket. So if he'd draw 5,000 or 10,000 people, I was making that kind of money, and I only had my own expenses to take care of.
The newly christened Evil had an instinctive grasp of what the public wanted. The people's appetite for daring meant that he'd constantly have to go higher, faster, and further. To achieve that would require nerves of steel, dedication, and imagination. He knew leaping across 2 wooden ramps wouldn't thrill a crowd for long. So he devised his first big spectacle, a 120-foot leap across the fountains at Caesar's Palace Hotel in Las Vegas.
The motorcycle had plenty of horsepower. I just didn't have enough takeoff ramp. It was a sunken parking lot. When I came through the parking lot, I only had one run at it. I couldn't go past the takeoff ramp to see if my speed was right. And I just landed about 2.5 feet short of the landing ramp on top of a van. We had a van parked there, so in case I went head-on into the landing ramp, I wouldn't decapitate myself. The first time I saw the film, the second time or third time, it was very upsetting to me. See yourself almost ground to death. The helmet saved my life, that's for sure. Full coverage helmet saved my life.
Evel Knievel was in a coma for 29 days.
Motorcycle jumping is incredibly dangerous. If you land short, you're screwed. If you land at the ramp, just 6 inches short, like Evel did it at Caesars, that's horrible. It crushed the rear wheel of that motorcycle, threw him into the bars, then over the bike, and just pulverized his bones.
Gary Davis is a stunt coordinator on some of Hollywood's biggest movies. In the early 70s, he was a rival of Evel's with his own Daredevil act. In an effort to minimize risk on some of his more elaborate stunts, he has raised motorcycle jumping to a science.
When I leave a ramp, as soon as I crest the top of the ramp, I roll the throttle off and push the handlebars away from myself. That seems to level the motorcycle out. Now, if any time during my travel through the air, the front end comes up, I tap the brake and it sucks the rear end back up and levels the bike out. If the front end is getting low, if I've shut the throttle off too fast and the front end gets low, then I rev the throttle and bring it back up. So it's not necessarily a passenger ride from the time you leave the ramp till you land. You should still be riding it in the air, and there are things you do instinctively. If you have to think about it, it's too late. Evel didn't do any of that. Evel hit the ramp as fast as the motorcycle would go and gritted his teeth and accepted the challenge and took whatever was dealt him.
I know what kind of bikes he was on. He was on, factory racers. And he had beefed up suspension, but the distances he went, which was 80 to 100 feet on an average, was a long ways, and it was more than anybody else would try and do back then.
The older motorcycles that we used to jump, they only had 4 or 5 inches of travel in the rear. Actually, only 3 or 4 in the rear, and probably 5 or 6 in the front. On a motorcycle today, If this were on the front end of the motorcycle, this is the front fork. It compresses, and it'll compress down 12 inches and back up again. If the suspension is not set to dampen correctly, it'll compress going down and dampen it, but it springs back up too fast and lofts you off the motorcycle.
Evel's belief in a wing and a prayer extended to the preparation of the ramps he needed to get his bike airborne.
We'd build them ramps, and then he'd get back and I will move it this way, and a bunch of us would drag it over through, move it back a little, and he'd be there. That was how technical that was. It was all him. But he had to make the jump, so if he wanted it moved a half an inch, we'd move her a half an inch for him.
As the cult of the Flying Daredevil grew, Evel found himself in increasing conflict with another strain of motorbike enthusiasts. During preparations for a big jump in San Francisco, a simmering dislike reached boiling point.
Well, that jump that I jumped at the Cow Palace, I think it was 13 vans or 15 vans. Anyway, one of the Hells Angels threw a tire iron at me and a piece of steel of some kind. I mean, these guys are dogs. They belong in penitentiaries. They're murderers, they're thieves, they're drug dealers. I don't care about the riding of the motorcycle. One of them threw the tire iron at me, and I saw this little bastard standing there in the middle of the floor giving me the peace sign, the finger. And I always wanted to punch one of them anyway. So I revved my motorcycle up and I threw it into a slide and I knocked this guy piss over tea kettles. All of a sudden, about 500 people jumped out of the grandstand and they grabbed these 4x4s and these 2x4s and they absolutely beat the hell out of these Hells Angels. They beat those Hells Angels to death. I hate their guts and I hate what they stand for. And I want everybody to know they are not accepted by motorcycle people. We don't like them. That's just the way it is.
Jack Ferreter, an old friend of Evel's from Montana, was there during the scrap with the Angels. But that wasn't his only concern that night.
I could tell that the motorcycle wasn't operating proper. I mean, you could tell by the sound of it. And when he was shifting the gears and this and that, it was something, he wasn't hitting on all cylinders. And that particular night, I could see the beads of sweat popping off of his face. As it turned out, he made it. And nobody could believe he did it, but when he hit, he blew the tire on the back end of that bike, exploded on him. And that threw him into a turmoil, into a tumbling situation. He bounced off of one pillar and went on to another one. I said, oh, man. I thought for sure, and everybody in that place thought he was dead. When I went and seen him in the hospital, I said, Evel, I said, I can't believe you did that. And he says to me, and looked me right in the eye, and he says, what the hell did you want me to do, give them their money back? So that's what we're talking about. That's the kind of a guy we're talking about.
A major part of the Evel Knievel charisma is his very convincing manner in persuading an audience that he knows exactly what he's doing. The location, the Midwest. The scene, a news conference with the main topic, Evel's Snake River Canyon jump.
And when they fire that sky cycle of mine, it's going to go from 0 to 200 miles an hour by the time it reaches the end of that. And what that takes.
Evel began to talk not of leaping cars, but of canyons. His dream had been to fly across the Grand Canyon. But denied by the Arizona state authorities, he headed instead for the Snake River in Idaho. From day one, it was a bizarre, if not suicidal, project. Evel invented a special vehicle, the X-2 Sky Cycle. Built from the rusty fuel tank of a Navy bomber, held together with baling twine, 2 unmanned test flights ended in ominous failure.
I'm having trouble, to tell you the truth, getting out of the thing. It's such a cramped cockpit. If it goes in the river, how the hell I'd ever get out of it, I don't know. I mean, and how's the scuba diver going to get me out? I mean, I can't find the damn parachute release down there because the thing is so cramped in.
The canyon jump was just, it was a huge build-up, and because for a little girl it was the end of the road, because he told us, you know, he wasn't going to make it, and he really thought that, and he had set everything up at home so that when we got home, you know, we knew he wasn't going to be there. And he would always say our little goodnight prayers together with us, you know, now I lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep, that one. And I guess he always, you know, brought across that he believed in God. So I don't know, there wasn't a real scary feeling of, you know, what would happen to him, just that we wouldn't have him anymore. And I didn't know what life would be like without our whole life on a roll with Evel Knievel.
Stopwatch will go on at 10 seconds. Cameras on at 5.
But brought up with the Butte mentality, which maintains if you say you're going to do something, you do it, Evel didn't see the certainty of death as any valid reason to pull out of the leap.
Now, for this last 30 seconds to countdown. Happy landing, Evel. Last 10 seconds.
I hope that nobody ever has to say a prayer like I said before I fired that fire button. I said, God, take care of me, here I come. Bang.
The family is hysterical and in shock, crying. They think Evel may be dead or maybe drowning in the river.
He was going down. We were afraid he was going in the river. Then we heard he's on the rocks, and we heard he's okay. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I can remember thinking as a kid inside, he made it.
Evel Knievel is standing in the boat and waving. He is alive and well. Good, sir.
I think he's lucky he didn't get over there, because all that thing was a tin can, no safety bars or nothing in it. And if he lit on the other side, it had floated like a beer can.
Gloria's failure only enhanced the legend. Everyone wanted a piece of Evel. The stunt cycle model, launched by the Ideal Company a couple of years before, began to leap from the shelves of toy stores across America.
As long as I'm making the money that I'm making, all the money in the world can't buy your way into heaven. It can't buy your way out of hell. It was made to be spent right here, and I'm going to have the best clothes, best boots, best diamonds, best cars, trucks, motorcycles, booze, and women on the face of this earth, just as long as I can keep going.
Hi, good looking. You going swimming again?
As Evel mania swept America, the money came in almost as quickly as he could spend it. Over $60 million he claims to have earned from television fees and merchandise funded the extravagant playboy lifestyle of the man seen by many as Elvis on a motorbike. Legend has it he once enjoyed the favors of 8 different women in 24 hours, and he was rarely separated from his favorite companions, whiskey and beer.
I know that he's brave. Well, I think he's a bit stupid. I don't really know about Evel Knievel.
In 1975, Evel Knievel went global. Thinking big as ever for his debut performance on foreign soil, he booked the biggest stadium in Britain and promised his longest leap yet. The Wembley authorities, used only to the FA Cup final and the genteel rights of the Horse of the Year show, plagued promoter John Daly with reservations about the All-American daredevil.
they were about to put on a show which, quite honestly, they became more and more terrified over. And let alone filling the stadium, they were also concerned as to whether the people would get full value for money. You know, what about the turf? What exactly does this Evel Knievel do? Is there any chance we could change his first name? A real degree of cynicism with the English audience, because all they knew about him was that he'd failed at Snake River. Some said he pulled the parachute too quick. You know, so there was a sort of a doubt about this character.
But Wembley has never seen an Evel Knievel, nor has London, and 80,000 of them have turned out.
The American commentator for ABC television at Wembley was Frank Gifford.
He will be jumping over 13 buses.
I walked into Wembley Stadium. I took one look at all those buses lined up and the ramp going up to the furthest end of Wembley Stadium, and I thought, oh boy, this is no chance. And I guess about an hour later he came in, and he had his kind of raggedy leather suit on, not his jumpsuit, but one I think he had spent the night in it. And he came in and he said, "How you doing, Frank?" I said, "I'm doing fine." I said, "You're not doing too well, though, are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm hurting." And that was the first time he looked over and he saw the buses. And he said, "Hell, I can't do that." I said, "You can't do what?" He said, "I can't jump that far." And I said, "Well, let's take a bus or two out. We don't care." This is no. He said, I said I'd jump 13, and that was the end of it.
We had put microphones in the tunnel where he was going to come out of, and then we played the English national anthem, and then we, out of good manners, we played the American national anthem, and of course Evel started to let go of the throttle, and I'm afraid sort of bedlam took place.
He made a couple of runs at it, and each time he did, the entire stadium collectively would, and he would stop right on the end. And he worked him up into the most incredible frenzy. So he told me he was going to go, as I said, he told me he was going to go in the third time, and sure enough, he put the thumb up, and I thought, here he comes. And I said into the microphone, I think he's going to go now on this attempt. And so down the ramp he comes, and off the end he goes, and it looked like a pretty good jump, except he was right. He could not jump 13, he jumped about 12 and a half.
Oh my God.
But despite the crippling pain of a broken hand, fractured pelvis and concussion, Evel Knievel never forgot to be the consummate showman.
I've got to tell you that you are the last people in the world who will ever see me jump, because I will never, ever, ever jump again. I am through.
I went in an ambulance with him, and he was covered in dirt and everything. He was badly shook up, but he still kept his sort of sense of humour, because he said, he sort of apologised. He said, "I'm sorry, John," he said, "but my granny always told me to catch the last bus." And I said, forget it, it's okay.
Well, first we take the arms and try to bend them in place. Then we put a little plastic on the feet and the face. We take the right leg and fix it so it fits on a bike. And take the left one and do with it whatever we like. Then we screw around a little with a plate in his hip. Put a zipper in his bottom and we button his lip. And things that we don't recognize go back in the bag. And we mop him up all over with a surgical rag.
Like a two-wheeled Frank Sinatra. For Evel, retirement was a relative term. Just 4 months after the Wembley knockdown, he bounced back yet again at Kings Island, Ohio.
You can't do it and say you're the best in the world and then fall off and get up and say, I quit. Not if you're an Evel Knievel, you can't. And I'm not going to quit that way. I will try it again. If I make it, I'll continue. And if I don't, I'm going to pack it all in.
Helping the Knievel comeback was youngest son Robbie. At Kings Island, he was introduced to an American audience for the very first time.
You know, he was in a lot of pain because the doctor went shoot the xylocaine into him to numb him up because they were busted from the jump before. And I held his hands while he shot the xylocaine in himself. So, you know, those moments were always scary. It was like, Dad falls off the bike this time. He was just like, when I was a kid, he's brittle, man. He's going to break into a million pieces like a puzzle. But so every time he went off that ramp, it scared me pretty good.
I always remember when I used to hang my clothes up in my dressing room and put my leathers on, that I always hoped I could go back and put the clothes on again. I'd been hurt so many times, I knew how close I was going to come to death each time.
After the sideshow, it was time for the main event. He had to prove himself. Wembley's 13 may have proved a bus too far. Undaunted in Ohio, he went for 14.
He's certainly the most courageous jumper amongst all of us to this day. If I had had as many bad wrecks as he had had, I would not, absolutely not, have continued jumping motorcycles. He always came back. He always said he would, and he always came back. And even when he retired and said, I'll never jump again, he came back.
It was a massive jump, a world record. But pushing himself to reach ever higher, ever further, was finally taking its toll.
I am going to continue to perform throughout this country and throughout the world. I hope that I'll be successful at doing it. But as far as I'm concerned, I have jumped far enough.
Viva, viva, viva Knievel. Viva, viva, viva Knievel.
With the big jumps behind him, Evel went into the movie business. But he relied on his old friend Gary Davis to take all the risks.
Evel Knievel was the star of a movie. He was not Evel Knievel, the daredevil. If, for any reason, Evel would have gotten harmed, I mean, all he had to do was catch a cold, and it shuts down the show. We were doing one of the sequences, and I was out riding wheelies and getting the crowd excited, and they wanted to shoot the crowd and do that stuff. Evel decided he was going to come out and entertain, too. And something went wrong, and he fell off the bike. It looped over on the wheelie. That was it. They flipped out. Warner Brothers has a lot of money invested in him at that time. They said, you're done. You will not ride. It's not that he couldn't have done this stuff. It was that they couldn't afford to allow him to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay in your seats. Please stay in your seats.
Viva Knievel didn't get too many mentions at the Oscars. And Evel returned to jumping and revved up for what he said would be one last TV spectacular. This time in Chicago, jumping a tank of sharks.
If I remember right, the last jump was in Chicago over the sharks, and it was a practice jump, and he missed, and off we all went to the hospital, and I think that was around the last one, and personally I was thankful because I was right there for that one, and it was really scary, and I was old enough, to realize, I think my dad's crazy.
For the first time in his career, he was not the only one hurt in a smash. A television cameraman lost an eye in the accident, and the show was cancelled. This was effectively the end of Evel Knievel's jumping career.
Of course, there was always talk that he would do this one last big hurrah, so you always kind of lived with that. But I'm pretty secure now that he's not going to do any more jumping.
Not that Evel was long out of trouble. In 1977, Sheldon Saltman, the PR man for the Snake River Canyon jump, published his account of his time on the road with Evel. 20 years on, the book's subject is still enraged by what he perceives as its personal attacks on his family.
This guy's name was Sheldon Saltman. Shelly Saltman. He's a filthy little jerk. When I catch that guy, I'm going to strangle him. I'm going to slap him so hard. If I catch him in Los Angeles, I'll slap him so hard they'll pick him up for speeding in San Francisco. That's how hard I'm going to hit him. This guy co-authored this book and wrote the worst crap in the world. Said I hated my mother. It's a lie. He said I was a drug user. That's a lie. This Saltman's just represents the rectum of the earth.
When Evel on tour hit the bookshops, the boy from Montana reacted the only way he believed was right. It was to lead to a speedy arrest by the Los Angeles Police Department.
He's got a baseball bat and broke his arms. He don't write any more books. It's hard to write with broken arms. Hard to type, too. The next time I'll do it different. Next time I'll send somebody.
If somebody tells lies about you and your family around this town, they're going to get a thumping. And that guy that came up here was trying to exploit Knievel's family, and he kind of kept them in the background. And I think the guy got everything he deserved. But it's too bad that, well, I've had to go to jail over that. He probably wouldn't have here in Butte. But down in California, it's a little different.
They all said that I had a guy hold his arms while I broke them. I did that because both of my arms were in casts. I had casts on both arms when I went after him. I thought he might take the bat away from me and kill me with it, so I had somebody with me. But I'd like to see him now and just punch him. Show him how hard I can hit him. There are some people on this earth that deserve killing. They're not good human beings. They're worse than the rottenest apple in a barrel.
What do you think of the sentence? 180 days.
The judge is a good judge, and he's a fair judge.
All American comic book heroes aren't supposed to go to prison. As well as serving time, Evel was ordered to pay Saltman nearly $13 million in damages. TV pulled the plug. Ideal cancelled the toy endorsements. On his release from prison, he disappeared from view, no longer wishing to test the public's declining enthusiasm for his motorcycle stunts.
How long can you, use that kind of an act? I mean, he had nowhere to go with it, other than to keep reaching, putting in another bus, putting in another truck, or whatever it might be. And I think that ultimately he would have killed himself had he kept trying to do that. Physically, he was pretty well banged up and beat up, and the people lost interest in it.
I just dropped out of sight and played golf and relaxed. I just completely withdrew from the public. I'll tell you, I came to a point in my life where I just couldn't pull a gun out of the holster anymore. Just couldn't do it. Couldn't pull the trigger. I mean, I'd been hurt 30-some times. And every time I saw a bus or a truck coming down the road, I used to wince when I was driving a car even. It's something you can't explain, but believe me, it gets to you.
Alicia, his fourth child, was born in 1980, the same year as his first grandchild. But retirement and a burgeoning family was not enough to save his marriage to Linda. Now Evel has a new love.
When I first met him, I was about 3 months away from getting married, and I just met him on the golf course, and the next day we played in the golf tournament, and I saw him after the tournament, just to say hello. And then I saw him again about 2 months later, at a restaurant I was managing. He came in, and I don't know. And after that, I went out with him once. I was kind of debating whether or not to get married or not get married, and I called off my wedding, and we packed up, and we came to Montana for 3 months.
2 decades on from his 70s heyday, just like flares and disco, the senior citizen, Evel, is back in demand with an American public addicted to nostalgia.
Discount, no matter where they drop by.
Boy, what I won't do to save a buck.
In fact, the appetite for revival is so great, a Hollywood blockbuster is already on the drawing board.
I would hope it's about how we aren't the same human beings that we were back then. And in the movie, right now in the script, I'm trying to tell a story of how we went from innocence, or from a sort of, a lack of cynicism, let's say, instead of innocence, to a very cynical country. Our country became a cynical country, and we went through a huge change from 1967 to 75, which included Watergate, and as Americans, it was a bad time. Part of what this movie has to be about is letting those people who say it was a circus act sort of find a way in to see what it wasn't just a circus act. There's something important that he did, and it had to do with how America is controlled by television, how he learned how to do that and became a master at it.
The most recent films to come under the direction of Betty Thomas are Howard Stern's Private Parts and last summer's Eddie Murphy vehicle, Dr. Dolittle.
If you look at my films, maybe you never have, but anyway, if you look at my films, I don't make action-packed movies. I'm not really that interested in action-packed movies, but this movie has some action in it because Evel did what he did. He risked his life.
Okay, good boy. Now, this time don't crash, do a wheelie, okay? Go on the wheelie, okay? And go off the jump. Jump where you always go off. That's the good enough.
Even the stunt cycle toy that made Evel Knievel a fortune is set to jump out at retirement.
That toy outsold every toy made on the face of the earth in the 1970s. G.I. Joe, the Barbie doll, I don't care what it was. I have a letter from the chairman of the board of Sears Roebuck that says, "Congratulations, you saved the toy industry."
This is Evel Knievel and his stunt cycle. He's the only rider to do so many stunts. Mid-air somersaults. Ride straight. And for that big jump, Evel Knievel's the only one rough enough and tough enough.
Evel Knievel stunt cycle. It's ideal.
My sister, who's younger than I am, had a Barbie doll and a Evel thing on a motorcycle thing, something, and she used to jump the Barbie pool. There was a Barbie pool or some junk like that, and she always had Evel jumping over Barbie and the pool and ending up in the pool. I mean, that was part of her thing.
A revamped stunt cycle is headed for toy stores this Christmas. It's aimed at a new generation of fans. But for those 30-somethings that grew up with Evel Knievel, the original will always be the best.
I played with one of these. I remember exactly where I was. I was at Clifford Rucker's house in Woodmere, New York, on Long Island, where I grew up, and we were jumping him off the top of the stairs, and Evel Knievel flew down and flipped over and danced on his head like this, all over the floor, and we never stopped. We never played with him after that. We just couldn't believe it. I remember I looked at this kid Clifford, and he looked at me, and we couldn't believe it. We'd never seen anything so miraculous in our entire lives. And after that, that was it. I couldn't, he couldn't do anything more amazing than what we had seen. So.
Such is the place Evel Knievel carved in the consciousness of a whole generation of Americans. Former Simpsons scriptwriters Jay Kogan and Wallace Wolodarski were determined to construct an episode of the world's favorite TV show around their childhood hero.
What we did basically is steal all the stories of our youth. So I and many other kids all would build little jumps, hurt ourselves badly trying to imitate Evel Knievel. So naturally, that was just a natural thing for Bart to do.
Oh no, he's hurt! Bad!
much of it seems to be based on Evel Knievel and his ilk. The lion in the Shark Tank, I think, was our invention. But otherwise, much of it, Lance Murdoch, was based on a guy very, very much like Evel Knievel.
If he's not in action, he's in traction. Captain Lance Murdoch.
Ladies and gentlemen, and especially little children, I'm glad you're all here to witness what may very well be my grisly death.
Kids have no sense of mortality. So it's when people fall down off of cliffs and jump over, 28 cars, they just think it's all good fun. Because most of the time when you fall down, you get back up and you're fine. I think that's the real appeal of Evel Knievel, is he's just doing it on a massive scale. He's falling down on a massive scale, and that's just, great for any kid.
But he also just kept doing it. That's the amazing thing. I mean,
Right.
He got so badly hurt time and time again.
I mean, didn't he break? I mean, the line in The Simpsons is he broke every bone in his body except his thumb, and then he puts his thumb up and it breaks.
Ow! Doc, I heard a snap.
I'm afraid the bone's broken. Well, that's all of them.
Entrepreneur Sam Cassell is one of the leading players in promoting this strange late 90s Evel Knievel revival.
There's a whole subculture of young people who are getting involved in extreme sports and extreme activities like skateboarding and wakeboarding and taking those sports to the absolute limits. And the only icon that remains out there is Evel Knievel.
These ex-game athletes and I, we share a special bond, one that allows us to understand each other, even if sometimes we can barely understand ourselves.
Every extreme sport is about catching air, whether it's skiing, wakeboarding, skateboarding. It's all about getting up in the air. And what other global figure caught more air than Evel Knievel?
For Sam, Evel is the philosopher king of blue-collar America. He's immortalized the air catcher's more idiosyncratic thoughts in a new book subtitled The Attitude of Evel Knievel.
This attitude of Evel Knievel has also carried over into a lot of his speeches that he's made before his famous jumps, and has developed quite a charisma with the spoken word. And it's kind of an A to Z quote book, but on the subject of heaven, Evel says, I want to go to my own kind of heaven. It's got a canyon there that I can jump across safely. It's got a golf course I can shoot par on every day. Buses I can jump easily. It's got draft beer that doesn't make you fat. It's got a lot of beautiful girls running around, and my wife won't get mad if I go out with any of them. And my kids stay small all their lives and don't talk back to you. Now that's my kind of heaven. Well, on himself, on Evel Knievel, the character, he says, Evel Knievel was a character I created. He was even hard for me to live with sometimes. He wouldn't do anything I told him, the dumb son of a bitch.
I have hepatitis C, and I got it through blood transfusions over the last 5 years, and I've been told by the doctors 5 years ago that I didn't have 5 years to live. But I feel pretty good. And my friends tell me I look pretty good, so I'm taking it one day at a time. They were going to operate on me here just 3 months ago. And I said, Doctor, I know I can make it through. And he said, well, I hope you do, because there's a man that has 5 or 7 days to live, and he needs a liver, and he's the same blood, old blood as you are. So I stayed out of it.
I don't think negatively about it. I mean, I think 100% absolutely that he'll recover from that and he'll feel a lot better when he does. But it's hard to look forward to it happening because it's going to be such a difficult process. But, that's part of being in a relationship. If I didn't want and expect that to happen, then I am free to go.
Come on, honey.
Slowed by 16 major operations, his liver exhausted by many blood transfusions, and a lifelong enthusiasm for strong liquor, Evel Knievel can now be found in the local park, playing with his grandchildren. These days, the epitome of daredevils is doing the unthinkable. taking life easy.
You always remember the first guy on the moon. Who was the second? See? So no matter how many imitators there are, there's still only one Evel Knievel.
Yeah. The pool.
Yeah. Never mind about that pool, you little punk.
Yeah, you're a punk, Grandpa.
How's that?
What did you
I've never been scared of dying, ever. Dying is a part of living. God put you here to be the best and do the best and live the best that you can, and when He's ready, He's going to take you. Now, what in the hell can a human being ask for that's better than that? This is a great world, as long as we continue to seek peace with our neighbors.
You're watching Evil Night on BBC 2.